Good evening, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day to one and all. So, a very warm welcome to February's meeting of the Holbush Parish Council. Just as a bit of housekeeping, if the fire alarm does go off, the nearest exits are here, and across the far side of the car park is an assembly point. If everyone can make their way there and wait until you've all been accounted for, so we can ensure everyone's left the building. So at this meeting, you're not required to stand when addressing council. I will introduce each agenda item and invite you to speak. Please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to debate an item. When voting, can I ask members please to clearly raise your hand in order for it to be counted accurately. The first 10 minutes of this meeting is dedicated to questions from members of the public. We'll try to answer your questions tonight. Where this is not possible, we will aim to get back to you as soon as we can. Do we have any questions, please, from members of the public? Okay. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. On behalf of the Royal Observer Corps Association, do you have any updates on the lighting of the beacon?
You want me to?
Yes, please, Isabel.
Currently, we are still planning to do it. We are just liaising with South Holland District Council to get their permission to use the piece of land and to know that the basket has been repaired fully. I know Councillor Carter is onto that one as well, so we will be inviting you to a meeting so we can discuss further as soon as we know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Answer your question.
No, that's a good question.
Who was next? Yes, Ken.
Yeah, I've come for a bit of a moan actually. I don't suppose there's anything you can do about it. It's too late. All the planning has been put in place, and you're going to refer me on to South Holland District Council and even the Highways Department. But I've moved down Fen Road recently. There's a building at the back of us. They've raised the ground to the height of some of the residents' fences, which is quite high. There's been 3 weeks planned fire driving, which we've been informed about. That's run into 4 weeks. That's been murder. But look into the future, any future building in and around Holbush, can we have a stronger voice on the South Holland District Council Planning Committee? If it affects Holbush, let's have more representation. If it affects Pinchbeck, let them do the same. If it affects Spalding, do the same. We need a stronger voice.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody from planning want to make any comments on?
I would, if you like.
Yes.
I'm chair of planning at the moment. I am quite new, so please bear with me. I hear what you're saying, and we are doing our best. There is only so much that we can comment on as a parish council. They have to be within certain guidelines, the comments that we are allowed to make. South Holland, I know you said at the beginning that we would refer you on to South Holland, and that is exactly where I'm going to refer you. You will find in my report that I am trying to be more open with people, that there are more things being done, but I cannot do any more than that at the moment. I do hear you, I hear your voice, and I recognise what you're saying.
Right. The other big issues as well is the schools, the surgeries. We've all heard it. Sewage. Council of Beggardyke's been going on about that for years, and nothing's been happened. And again, getting back to this, sorry to interrupt, getting back onto this raised land, where's the water going to fall? And where's it going to go to? That is a big concern, I think.
Thank you again for those comments. What we'll do is we'll liaise between the planning committee and the clerk. If you can, they'll reach out to you to acknowledge what you said this evening, and we'll try and work together on that with regards to going forward with South Holland.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to respond?
No, you go first.
No, you go first, Francis. You want to go first?
Well, I'd just like to make a point regarding the planning. I mean, your plan, you have a planning representative as your, which is great. It is quite a complex issue, so I'll feel for you. But before any councillor, district councillor, be on the planning committee, they have to have planning training. And I'm sure there's opportunity if the person involved wanted to, if you contacted the planning department, when there is planning training, they'll be more than happy to accommodate someone to receive the training, which would help you to fill in the form. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Francis.
Thank you. Okay, Paul.
Right. At last month's meeting, you announced a precept of £244,000, up from £223,000, which is a 9% increase. Previously, it was £213,000 and a rise of 4.55%. In the summary of 21-22, there's over £7,000 spent at the Nature Reserve. What has that been spent on, please? And in the staffing of the office, 2021, there's a figure of 61,000 in expenses. 21-22, this has gone down to £59,000, but then the members of staff have gone down from 3 to 2. And as previously mentioned in the press, there was a figure of £27,000 for legal expenses paid out by the council. Where can this figure be found, under what heading? Because it doesn't seem to be apparent.
Right, so I've got 4 questions in that one question. Is that?
Yes, time is getting on. I'm not expecting you to answer them tonight.
No.
Perhaps we can put them on for the annual meeting on the next on March, please.
We will return, as we mentioned at the beginning. We'll answer your questions too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Thank you. So I'll now state the standing orders and commence with our first agenda item. But before I do, I'm just going to hand over to Sophie for a quick update.
Okay, so as many of you may have noticed, we've got a new face in the corner. This is Karen. She is our new assistant clerk. Brandy, very sadly, is leaving us on the 17th of February. And on behalf of the council, I would like to wish her luck in her new job. But we have appointed Karen, so you'll be seeing her very regularly, hopefully. You should be our new assistant clerk.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Karen.
What's the hours going to be? What's availability going to be? Same as Brandy's?
No, it's 21 hours per week. All of the details and contract and stuff I can pass over to you.
Okay.
Okay, so commencing with our first agenda item, which is 2021/2-1353, and that is apologies for absence and reasons given.
Received apologies from Councillor Peter Howden for an acceptable reason.
Thank you. Okay, and same sequence 154 is the clerk's report.
Right, so the update on the vacancies first. We have vacancies existing for Herne, 1 for Herne Ward, 1 for Drove Ward and 5 for Town Ward. Paperwork for anybody wanting to join the council can be obtained either from the office via in person or phone or by email or via our website. Correspondence, etc. Following the gentleman's questions in the public session last time, we've investigated the key for the cemetery chapels, and this is being returned to us next week. And the other one, which was slightly more difficult, which the Deputy Clerk looked into, is we went back through all our minutes, and in July 2006, members agreed for Hallgate Cemetery to be dedicated. In July 2008, members resolved to not have different areas of the cemetery for different religious beliefs, as it was said that, quote, and this was quoted in the minutes, we live side by side and should lay side by side, and there has been nothing to do with that since. Correspondence. Most of the correspondence will be covered in tonight's agenda items. We've had reports of some rough sleepers, and we have passed this on to the various agencies and also the police outreach team, so hopefully help will be available. There's been some issue with drain covers which have gone missing in Back Lane, and Councillor Carter was assisting on Thursday of last week, I believe. I've been informed now that the work is scheduled for this to be dealt with, and we have received confirmation that we will receive a grant of £3,000 from the Grange Farm, Wind Farms, towards a replacement slide in Carter's Park. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Okay, so same sequence agenda item is 155, which is declarations of interest. This is to receive any declarations of interest in accordance with the requirements of the Localism Act 2011 and to consider any requests for dispensations in respect of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests in agenda items. Do we have any members requiring to make a declaration of interest?
158B, pecuniary, and I've also applied for dispensation to be able to be in the debate but not vote. Been accepted for dispensation.
Yep, I've got a pecuniary interest in 158B, and I've also been applied for a dispensation to participate in the debate but not the vote. Yeah.
And same with me, same item, exactly the same, 158B, pecuniary and dispensation.
Which is also been granted.
Also, I have an interest in two, which is non-pecuniary, which is obviously the whole which don't matters, on 155, items I and N. Or L and N, sorry.
A and M,
Yeah.
155.
Yeah.
158, I think.
Is it?
158.
Yeah.
I've
158.
got a line open.
Yeah, 158.
And that's a non-pecuniary, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Obviously, I'd like to give my reasons why, but obviously I can't vote for why they're needed.
Okay. So our next item in the same sequence is 156. It's the minutes of the previous meeting to resolve to approve the notes of the meeting of the 17th of January 2022 as minutes. Did everyone have a chance to read through those as on the team drive? Resolved to go through over the weekend. Did everybody read them? Okay, do we have a proposer? Rick, and a seconder? Mark, and all those in favour? Okay, so...
I wasn't here, so I can't
Sorry,
vote,
yeah.
can I?
I wasn't here, but I thought I'd be voting on the minutes.
Excuse me for a second. Is there any of those?
It's just you, yeah, we think they probably don't do that, it's just...
Did I miss it? Sorry, Michael. £25 each. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. So moving on to the next item, same sequence, and it's item 157, and it's police, county and district matters. Do we have a report from police?
Yes, the police gave us quite a big report this time, and following on from when they had their meeting, there has been a focus on antisocial behaviour, which has resulted in less incidences being reported. And good news is the policing team should be back in the police station by the 31st of March. The current priority of the team is safety around our schools, and the police post updates to Nextdoor and Facebook. Regarding school safety, the police point out that in the highway code it states that parking etc. cannot take place on yellow zigzags near schools. Problems are being addressed are the blocking of roads and verges and other areas which cause visibility issues to our children.
Was there any comment on the things there about the
I asked
scanners and
they just sent through all the documents that were on the drive, so and that's a brief summary of everything.
It's just Tim brought that up in the last
Yes.
meeting. We just chase it without seeing that scanner.
Mm.
Thank you very much, Jan. Mark.
Can I just add on the police so I commend them for their work recently on the hair coursing locally. I know it's been a big push for them, and they are making big inroads in that, so, you know, well done for them for that.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, that's passed on.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, so item B is to receive a report from the County Council. We have Councillor Tracy Carter with us. If I can ask you to...
Certainly, thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of updates on here. Chestnut Avenue, hopefully if you live around there you'll be aware that that's already been levelled off now. That obviously there was quite a big dip there. It isn't finished, it's levelled off, it's going to be planed off, then levelled again, and the other side of the road tied in there a little bit more as well. But it is at this stage certainly better. To kind of stress again, if you're getting any TRO requests through, there is such a huge backlog on them, so just kind of managing expectations as much as possible. You know, if you get any brilliant, bring them forwards and we'll certainly be looking at them, but just to be aware there is that huge backlog. All the lines have all been refreshed around Market Hill, including that keeping clear on the junction of Back Lane, which has been something else been pushed for quite a while. The new fencing has gone up around the overflow car park in Stookley now as well, so that's looking much tidier. And then obviously Boston Road, there's been a full press release of that last week about the plans going forwards with that. So we'll continue to keep working on that one. And that's about it on the county update. Do you want me to go straight through on to district?
Please, yeah, thank you.
Okay. So again, you'll have seen that 2 new benches have been installed, one at the Co-op end and one at the Langwith end. So the Langwith one is for obviously those people walking into town to encourage them to have that stop-off point there. The toilet refit, the date is very much imminent for there, and that's going to be a really good refit for the Holbeach toilets. The January full council meeting, you will have seen that the garden waste scheme was improved to extend for more residents, so that's good news. The business advisor with the welcome back funding, they've started to work now, so they're going to be working for the next 2 months, working with their local businesses. This is district-wide, not just Holbeach, but it's helping them do basic things, register with Google My Business, Facebook, all of those kind of things. They're already approaching businesses, and I've obviously approached a lot of the Holbeach ones because I want to get Holbeach having much of a quota of the fund as possible, basically. We had the coffee morning this morning for Waddles, and that raised 514, so thank you to those who did attend that. Albert Street, there has been issues which the clerk reported to me about the truck getting down there while that scaffolding's at the top. We've sent the van down and the van's on standby for any point when the truck can't get down while that scaffolding's there, so we haven't got any collection issues there. The beacon, as Councillor Hutchinson mentioned earlier, the welding is done. Waiting for better weather and the paint and clean-up will be done. And you've probably seen that there's bags out yet again on High Street from the flat near the bookies. It's driving me to distraction. I've got the wardens going out and checking. They've been through the bags. So far, no ID in there. It's something I'll continue to keep pushing. Final point is I met with the new police sergeants last week because, again, I've brought it up about the lack of presence, to be honest with you, since the station has been closed. We went through antisocial issues, quite a number of things, and really did push that residents are really needing that presence in town. It was positive, and we'll be meeting every 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. So anything else you want feeding back, please do so, and then I can put that to that meeting.
Thank you
I
very
think
much.
that's it.
Thank you, Tracy.
Any questions, as always, email me. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you very much. Thank you, very useful. Okay, so moving on to our next item. Same sequencing, 158 is the Open Spaces Committee and it's to co-op. Any interested members to the committee? Is there anybody here that's not already in Open Spaces that would like to hop on at this point? You can raise your hand or you can wait till the next meeting. Any takers? Okay, so we'll move on to item A, and that's to receive the report from the Chairman, Councillor Rachel Flood, please.
Yeah, 1 second. Sorry, I'm having to enlarge everything at the minute. Right, Open Spaces Chair Report. We was not quorate at our last meeting, but we used the time to sit and discuss the agenda items we already had. We deferred some things to the next Open Spaces meeting, which is at the end of February, and other more important decisions will appear in tonight's agenda, which we wanted to get sorted and didn't want to defer. We've received some reports of fly tipping at the Nature Reserve. Our Open Spaces team are now moved into Carter's Park. As you know, they've done some fantastic work in Park Road Cemetery, and now can be found to be cutting back and opening up the area so we can deter some more antisocial behaviour. We've received the trees for Netherfields now, and in the upcoming time we'll be starting planting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so item B is to receive an update on the Battlesfield legal and to resolve to send a report to the Farmer Educational Trust.
Okay, do you want me to discuss this? I mean, it's quite a lengthy document. I don't know if anybody's read it in the team drive. Is anybody? It's not in the minutes in the team drive.
Well, I don't give a brief synopsis of it, so you know what you're talking about.
Yes, okay. Well, Sophie, can you fill in a little bit more on it? Because a lot of it went straight over my head.
Yeah, so basically we've got legal advice on the situation with the asbestos at Battlefield allotments, which in the majority we have cleared away. It was just the discrepancy of who exactly is responsible for doing any groundworks, etc. for that. The advice has come back that both us as the tenants and George Farmer Trust are both responsible, but the advice is that it's probably a 60-40 split roughly, with the George Farmer Trust being mainly responsible as the landowners. So that's the advice that's come through, and then obviously the proposal is to write to the trust explaining the advice we received and move forward from there.
Yeah.
I mean, they were very thorough in their response.
They refer to all the legislation and
yeah.
stuff that.
I mean, this is why we went to them in the first place, because with the lease and everything outstanding, we did need proper legal advice of which way we had to go.
Tim, in the shared drive that you have access to, a link was sent out this morning, the whole document's in there. It's a really good read, and it'll just give you a bit more understanding of the legal bits and pieces.
Yeah, it's just that if it's dealt with the Open Spaces Committee, you expect there to be some kind of synopsis involved in the minutes itself.
Yeah, well, we deal with each agenda item as they're proper, so and
The
we just have that.
response doesn't come to the Open Spaces meeting, it comes out to all council. We start the ball rolling, and then, especially legal matters, comes to everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the item is to resolve to send the report. Do we have a proposer and a seconder? Rachel, thank you. Okay, thank you, Sam. And all those in favour? Peter, sorry, did you go? Yeah, so
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
that's agreed, yeah.
And you voted as well, Evelyn, didn't you?
No.
Yeah.
Item agreed. Item C is to discuss and resolve to agree the procedure where a headstone or cross is required for an infant's multiple grave.
Yeah, this is quite a tricky one, and it's quite historic as well. I'll read the background to it. The background to this is pre-1970s. It was practiced to bury up to 4 infants within one grave. They tend to be placed in corners. The reason, as we believe and know certain, is that no charges were made for the plot. We now have a situation where we have received a memorial application for the erection of a cross on a baby's grave. However, there's also another baby interred in the same grave. Both babies were interred in 1943. The issue now, and of course going forward, is what to do. If we allow a headstone, this application is just for a cross. Then what happens to say if the other family wants to put something there as well? We're hoping this decision is the way we'll move forward with our memorial policy.
Thank you, Rachel. Isabel.
The way I see it, there's only one option really that we can go with, and that would be that any memorial would have to be stating the names of all of those within the grave, not just one, because obviously if you have a headstone and then you only put one name on there and then another family comes forward, you're then going to have that all altered again. If we are approached by only one family and there are multiple within the grave, then all we can do is try and contact the other family if at all possible and let them know and ask them whether they would wish to contribute towards that. If we can't contact them, then we'd have to go back to the family that wants the memorial and explain that there would have to be all the names on there, and do they still wish to go forward. That's the only solution I can see to hopefully help every family. It would be down to the individual family if they then decided they didn't wish to have a memorial on that basis, then that's their right, but we can't put a memorial on a grave for one person if there are multiple people in there.
Also, we can't go and chuck somebody else's names on a memorial. They might not wish that child's grave to be marked. There could be 101 reasons. It's very tricky.
Records not have details of the children that are buried in a multiple grave.
We have got the records.
You have.
Yeah.
So you would have something to
But a lot of them
publicise.
are outdated and these families have moved away.
Yeah.
There's a few incidents we cannot contact them.
But it's something that you would be able to publicise the names of any family of.
It's a bit tricky because some of these families might not want it publicised.
Yeah.
It's a very tricky area, and for whatever reason, and you don't want that being publicised. If they don't want their child's grave being out in the public, and we go and do that, it's not nice. It is very difficult, and you know people from that time ago who's probably have moved. Sorry.
Thank you.
Is the burial practice currently that we still allow multiple graves in that format then?
No.
So it's just historic?
So this is 90, going back to 1943.
Yeah.
Sophie.
The only other solution I can think of, which would allow a bit more flexibility, obviously this particular case they've requested a cross and not a headstone. Whether you only limit it for these circumstances to only have a cross, so that in the event that you get a family coming forward in the future, you can easily amend the plaque on the cross rather than having a headstone, which is obviously not then permanent. It's not the best case scenario, but it would allow us more flexibility so that, you know, if you do get 2 years down the line and another family comes forward, you can then make the amendments.
Sam.
So did you mean a wooden cross so that a brass plaque could
Yeah.
be on and then another brass plaque added in?
Yeah.
Make a comment here. The wooden crosses are usually used are usually very temporary. They weather very quickly, and if it was left more than a year, it would soon fade and the varnish come off. Would it not be better to go back to the applicant and let them know of the dilemma, and maybe something more like where you put flowers, little squares, and you can put
I was
flowers.
going to say exactly the same thing.
Those sort of, because
You can have 4 of those on the grade, effectively.
maybe not for mowing, because you've got to think about the cutting, but they could add plaques round if necessary. But I do agree, it's a very tricky situation, and maybe if we share the dilemma, we might be able to come up with a solution with this applicant that might steer the way.
I mean, I do prefer that option. I mean, you can get the nice square varnish with the added back.
Yeah.
It's hard to add back to the cross and light seams that they do weather. And bear in mind, we've got some in there with more than 4 children in.
Yeah.
So it is very, very tricky.
Tricky. Sam?
Can I just say that whatever we decide, please don't make it an email. Can we make it a conversation with the people that
Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
I'd happily do it myself rather than...
The applications come via a memorial mason, and it is for a wooden cross with a brass plaque.
well, we need to return to the mason and
I
say
think we need to come up with a.
we need to have
We need to work with them on a solution, and
Yeah.
not just, we can't make a decision on this because it's very personal. I think we should work with that particular request, the stonemason and the individual, and then bring it back to make the agreement for the future.
But obviously saying what we've then briefed on, you know, how we want to move on with our policy,
Yeah.
I think the suggestion you made would be ideal for our policy.
So if we go back into the stonemason to work with the applicant, and then we should be able to make the adjustment and amend the policy.
I think so.
And that way we're going to work with them as opposed to, we want a solution for it. It's very personal.
Thank you.
Do we have a proposer for that motion? I've got Tim and a seconder Rachel. All those in favour? Okay, so debating item has been agreed. Thank you. Okay, so item D is to resolve to adopt all members of the community garden volunteers as volunteers of the parish council.
Do you want me to explain, because Rachel wasn't at the last meeting, were you? So,
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah.
after our first public meeting about floral arrangements within the town, some of the members that came to the first meeting came to the second meeting, and they've been discussing things amongst themselves, and they came back very clearly that they didn't want to become a constituted group and then be able to do things off of their own back. They wanted to work on projects alongside us rather than actually doing things themselves. So therefore, if they're going to be working within any of our areas or working on projects like the Jubilee Garden and things like that, they would need to be volunteers of the council. So it's just a process that we need to follow, so that anybody that wants to volunteer at any point, they would be put onto the list and then issued the policy so that they're aware of what the procedure is and work with them, basically.
Okay. Very straightforward then. So as far as I'm aware, the volunteer policy that we have, as long as the full council approve them to be volunteers, then they can be covered under hardship, but they must be approved at council. So do we have a proposer and a seconder for that item, please?
Do we have a list of names of these people, or?
Not yet. I think it's just to agree that that's what we're going to do, so we can have to wait for them to come forward.
Are these people fully aware of what this all entails?
Yes, the ones that came to the meeting are. Obviously, anybody else that then wants to volunteer, when we put a piece out there saying that we're doing a particular project, if they want to volunteer, then they'll have to contact the office anyhow, and then they'll be given all the information about that process.
We understand what name something was.
Will this be a rolling approval, or is it just an approval for the volunteers that they have at the moment? So if next week somebody else joins their volunteer group, how do we know that they'll volunteer who then potentially hasn't seen the policy?
You're a good point there, Peter. I know that every year, like the Millennium Lighting, we have to approve them as volunteers for them to be covered, and I wouldn't see it be any different that any volunteer, as per the policy, needs to be approved by full council to be covered. So even if they come in.
There's not specific members of the group at the moment, it's sort of a bit of an ad hoc situation. So what we put out in the press release is that anybody who wants to volunteer helping with the Jubilee Garden, they need to contact Clark. So anybody who wants to volunteer on any of the projects will contact Clark, be given the volunteer policy, and then they can conduct any voluntary work they want to. But they do need to, under the policy, everybody needs to keep us updated as to what their activities are and what they're doing.
Does that answer your question? Okay, so do we have a proposer and a seconder for the item? Thank you, Rick and Sophie. All those in favour? Okay, so item is agreed. Okay, item E is to discuss and resolve to agree to change users of Carter's Park, users of Carter's Park for electric.
As I say, this wasn't discussed in our open spaces meeting, so I don't know where this has come from or what information we have.
It's partly around another item that's further down, but it's more about, obviously, all of the electricity costs have escalated dramatically, and we have been monitoring the bills for Carter's Park and all of our areas, and they are quite significant. So we're going to look at what we can do from our end to try and reduce those costs as much as possible. But say, you know, if we're having an event in the park from another group and they wish to use electricity for the day, then it would be set at a flat rate, and that would be it. So it would be a one-off payment, and then it would cover the cost of the electricity that they'd be using for the day.
I think the important thing to remember here is only where they're requesting use of electric. Some bring their own, petrol generators and don't use electric. So we're specifically referring to users of the electricity supply. Yeah. So the item is to discuss and resolve to agree to charge.
Well, personally, I think that needs a lot more discussion effectively. It's to bypass open spaces completely, and I think this needs a lot more discussion.
Okay, so the item only says to agree to charge users for Carter's Park for electric. It's not debating.
Well, there's a decision of whether it's going to charge or not charge. I think that needs to be discussed.
Yeah.
In more detail.
May I propose we discuss it now then, as it is an agenda item?
Yeah.
That is the purpose of the meeting.
Go on. Rachel.
What sort of figures are you talking?
I wasn't at the meeting, so.
No.
I suppose it depends logically on how long the event's for. A bit of string.
So
What
what?
don't know how long they're going to be there for. Pardon?
You come up with an hourly rate?
Well, I presume we'll come up with a daily rate, I would imagine.
Well, sure.
Logically.
Well, sure, the logical thing is you can pass on the actual usage charges effectively.
You could.
That way you're not going to make a profit out of it. You can't be seen making a profit out of it.
The problem with that idea, Tim, is that obviously, unless you've got some way of recording exactly how much electricity has been used, it's very difficult. And the metering, the way our systems are with the metering, you can't actually record exactly how much is being used from that particular point, because it's coming in from different directions.
Mr. Chairman, it's quite easy to set up separate supplies with separate metering. It's not a difficult issue.
It is, they've got the option of setting up different supplies with different metering, which is going to be discussed further down the line with the Bolscoe Police. That's where this whole thing stemmed from, because at the moment we've got one electricity supply going to the whole of the pavilion. So when we get an electricity bills in, working out exactly the exact ratio of how it's split up is difficult. You can get a general idea, but obviously putting in extra meters and stuff is going to cost money. So that is a factor. In terms of the price that you'd be charging, I don't think in any way you'd be charging a price that you'd be making a profit. If anything, you'd still be making a slight loss, but it's just to try and recoup some of that money, because obviously you can't just keep especially with electricity prices how they are, we can't just keep giving it out for free. Because some events they bring their own generators, some events they request electricity, and with most venues that you would go to, they would be expecting some donation or charge for the electricity, especially with the cost at the moment. So,
thank you, sir. Just to redirect you here, you know, the biggest thing that you're missing is that when we put on an event, we heavily subsidise whoever's using that, and they do make their own profit, proceeds, charity, whatever they're doing. At the end of the day, the money that pays those bills is taxpayers' money, so they're paying for it anyway.
Yes, yes, but then my basis is the fact that people should pay for what they use. And you have a situation whereby you have a landlord with multiple flats in a building, you have a separate metering. Therefore, it's quite straightforward. We simply have separate metering, separate suppliers, separate metering. It's not difficult to organise if the will is there to do it. What I'm concerned about is leaving an open opportunity for the exploitation of the electrical resources, making it not possible or not feasible to put events on in Cars Park.
I think the analogy there is a bit different from a block of flats to a
well, not really, no.
No, it certainly is.
Well, no, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, it isn't. It's simply a tap on the supply.
Mr. Chair, can I just
Of course you can, Rick, yes.
suggest that chances are, if there are any events on the Carter's Park, it's going to be on a Saturday or a Sunday. So we should be able to see from the bill roughly that nobody else will be working in the pavilion on a Saturday and Sunday. So the cost of electricity on that day, logically, should purely be for the event.
Absolutely.
Okay, in an effort to move this agenda item on, as I've clearly mentioned, that unless they're tapping into the supply, a lot of them use their own generators. You know, we seem to be debating an item here around and around where we could just say, yes, we will make a charge for electricity. It doesn't state, we don't state tonight what that charge would be, but just limit it that we will charge.
That's the problem, because there's no specific on the charge. If we're saying we're going to charge at cost, that's fair enough. If we're saying we make a charge, that leaves potential for exploitation, which we don't want.
So do you want the item deferring, Tim?
I would say deferring, yeah.
Okay. Tim would like the item deferring. Do we have a proposer for that?
can I just propose that we agree to charge, because then we can get the agenda item out of the way, and I think most of us from the discussion all agree that we're going to charge some amount. Then we pass that over to both open spaces and or planning, because it's the building, to discuss about separating off for meter readings, etc., and how much you're going to charge. Are you going to do a daily rate, or whether you're going to charge at cost, in which case you'll have to sort out meter reading. Because that's the more nitty-gritty stuff that can be discussed within committees, but the general purpose of charging really needs to come into full council rather than waiting a whole month again.
Rachel.
I'm quite happy to take the open spaces on the end of the month. Yes, we can agree that we're looking at a cost, which is sensible, and that's the bit you need to agree on now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so with regards to the item, Tim feels that we should defer it, so if we deal with that bit
Are
first.
you happy for us to discuss it at open spaces?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, so do you want to withdraw your proposal to defer the item?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so what we need to do then is to amend the agenda item, which will be to discuss and resolve to agree to charge, to be referred back to the Open Spaces Committee, please. Do we have a proposal and a second for that amendment, Rachel and Tim? All those in favour? That's agreed. Okay, item F is to discuss and resolve to agree the usage of Carter's Park for the Redeemed event on the 2nd and 3rd of July following the Save the Date agreement. More straightforward, there's some information being banding about this exciting little event that's happening. The item is to agree. Is there any debate there, or can we go straight to a proposer and a seconder?
So I think it's a really good thing for Holbridge, and I think we should be fully behind it.
Okay, are you proposing?
I would.
Mark, seconder. Sam, all those in favour? Okay, item's agreed. Looking forward to that. Thank you. Okay, item G is to discuss to resolve to agree the usage of Carter's Park on the 2nd and 4th of September for the food festival, subject to the necessary risk assessments, insurance, etc. as per previous years. This is the event that you can count.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. I've got a line going through mine.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Third, sorry. Correct, third and fourth. Printer issues. Nick would hate me if I pulled it forward again. So very straightforward, an annual event that's been going for some time, very successful. And go straight to a proposal and a seconder then for that. Rachel, Mark, all those in favour? Okay, that's agreed. And another event to look forward to. H, to resolve to agree the price of rubbish removal at battle scale. Right, did everyone see the quote, Rachel?
Yeah, there's a little bit of leeway. It wasn't a set price, was it?
Between 350 and 400.
Yeah.
So,
A
little bit.
little bit.
I do like a set figure. But, I mean, Jan and I met the gentleman down there. I would like to get this resolved as soon as possible.
Yeah, get it removed and out.
Yeah, because obviously people see it, they add to it.
Yeah.
And then we've got to look at ways of deterring it to happen again. So.
Okay.
We talk about those low volt tyres and stuff that's in
It's mainly household rubbish and garden waste.
those low volt tyres on there this morning, don't they?
This morning?
Yeah, low volt tyres, lorry tyres. Outside where the new access to the new estate's going.
Battlefield.
I thought he was on about Battlefield allotment then.
No,
that's not my remit. Sorry.
Are you talking about Battlefield's line?
Yeah, it's
That's one where the Wombles have cleaned up a lay-by. They put it there for the county council to collect.
Different
So
route.
it's not flighted or anything like that.
No, that's fine. No, on our Battlesford allotment, we've acquired some.
Yeah,
waste.
different area there, Tim. That's the other end. Just kind of
I nearly had a
everybody
picnic before I haven't seen the tyres.
got a lot of rubbish in there.
Oh, dear.
Well, yes, 'cause I thought, well, that's added recently.
Yeah.
So everyone's seen the quote, do we have a proposed set and a seconder?
I'll raise a question.
Yes,
I
question.
presume the cost is just for skip hire. How are we going to load the waste material into the skip?
It's not a skip hire.
This is clear.
No, it's just clear away, is it? Okay.
Yeah, the whole
Thank
lot.
you.
Yeah. And we discussed access the whole lot. The chap was very knowledgeable.
Brilliant.
So, yeah.
Okay, so going back, do we have a proposed set and a seconder? Isabel, Rachel, all those in favour? Okay, that item's agreed. Okay, item I is to resolve to agree to make our own picnic tables and seats.
Yes. It's a great idea. I don't know if anybody knows what we've been looking at, which is regarding moulds and concrete. And we can make them any colour. We're going to get some different pricings for moulds, and we can't keep replacing the wooden benches. So it's...
Have you not thought of the composite ones? They are
Yes, but they're
hard to damage.
extremely expensive. The decent ones are, the ones I've been looking at are $650.
And that's quite cheap.
Sorry,
actually.
your question's through.
Sorry.
Thank you. Sophie.
Composite you can set on fire as well, which has happened many a time.
They're less maintenance.
They're less but we're looking at stuff that is absolutely vandal proof, so we're not going to have to replace them anymore. Your options are really only metal or concrete for that. So
I think we looked at these items and the wooden ones, as you know, no end of them have been destroyed. They left it in a very dangerous state. Not only screws, the wood splinters, the whole thing, so they're dangerous to animals as well as humans. But yeah, so there's many different variations. Mark?
Can I just ask you if there's been any feedback from County in relation to, that was one thing that I put forward for the Welcome Back funding?
no, I haven't received anything yet. I'm trying to get some more quotes in and stuff for the digital screen at the moment. So.
Okay, so the item is to agree to make our own picnic tables.
So who's going to make them? You make your own?
Yes.
You're not going to shovel the concrete?
Parks team.
Parts in. All right, so it's going to be dealt with by the team we're employing?
Yeah.
Okay. They're okay with that?
it will,
Mr Chairman, they'll go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have discussed it with them.
Okay, just
Yeah,
as long as
work
they
schedule
don't
meetings,
get
yeah.
it.
I just
Agreed.
want to add to Even said,
Yeah.
the composite benches can be gouged, and we have a bit of a problem with a gouging tool within the park recently. So that is a concern, that they can still be damaged, and there's a lot of these moulds we're looking at. We can do the benches and tables, so we can cover the whole spectrum of things. So moving forward, it's going to be more cost effective. So the gouging thing was quite a concern.
Okay. So the item is to agree to make our own. Do we have a proposer and a seconder? We've got Rachel and Tim, and all those in favour? Any voting? Got to get your hand up so I can see it, Evan. Thank you. Okay, so item J is to discuss and resolve to agree the way forward with regards to rubbish and bonfire offenders. Something we've just touched on, of course. Isabel?
My suggestion would be if we receive information from more than one person, i.e. 2/3 people, giving the same name of the offenders or evidence in any way, shape or form, then they should be served notice. That's my
Mark?
I'll agree with that in the sense of evidence-based, but not from a hearsay perspective. I think it would lay us open to a conflict of interest in that format. But evidence-based, definitely, yes.
You're quite right, somebody can easily say certain so it and whatever, evidence, a photograph or a bit of a video of something or whatever. Okay, any more thoughts on that?
Can somebody tell me what the sanction is? What power do we have over them looking at their bonfires, etc.?
I think the only issue that came up was that when people lit a bonfire there, that obviously, if it's blown across the A17, it's a massive hazard for smoke. But
It doesn't state in here like where we're talking about, so it's probably a little bit confusing.
Yeah, that's the thing, it's where it is, obviously, but the point of the matter is what do we as a parish council have in the way of sanctions?
I think in the process
You're saying serve notice, what do we need to serve, what notice do we serve?
It's the allotments, so it was discussed in the open spaces meeting in more detail.
All right,
Yeah.
sanction is you do the allotment.
Yeah.
Oh, fair enough,
Yeah,
that's
so
fine.
so focus on the allotments.
Okay, we get quite a few on loan and whatever.
Again, all the information and the minutes, etc., from the meetings are in the drive.
Just looking
I
at
can see that in a minute, sorry.
Just looking at the agenda, it doesn't state where it is.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Michael.
But in general, it's the same on any allotment, really. We don't, with rubbish and bonfires, it's a general question.
Just a further point on that, you referenced smoke going across a major highway, and particularly that is a criminal offence, and further sanctions could be applied if we were there to report it to the police.
You can just imagine if an accident occurred because of it. It would be awful. Yeah. Okay, so there's been a proposal with regards to the agenda item that Mark's added to that about evidence. Do we have a proposal for that?
If it's 100% evidence.
100% evidence from 2 people.
I think from the, if I may, I think from the evidence perspective, evidence is evidence. If you've got a photo, or a video footage of that, you don't need that from 2 people. I just think that,
it's got to be factual.
It's got to be factually based.
Yeah, it's substantiated.
To protect their interests and ours.
So you're taking out the 2 people.
Yeah, so if there's evidence that backs it up, give a notice. Okay, so do we have a proposer, Rachel, and a seconder, Mark? All those in favour? Okay, that's the item agreed. Kate is to resolve to agree to the application for a greenhouse, shed and fruit trees at Battlefields Apartments. Rachel?
It is what it is. Lease they've asked, which is nice. Long as, I don't know if we have anything in our policy, and I can't remember off the top of the head, of what materials they're allowed to use down there.
Good point. I think we should make sure that it's there's nothing hazardous at least, but any glass breakages are not left and cleaned up, definitely.
I think it is in the policy that it has to be cleared when they vacate.
Yeah,
But
must take
I
it down.
don't think it specifies
I can
what
see
material.
So this is what we need to be a little bit mindful of.
Yeah.
Could we go back to the person and ask them what they're planning to build with?
I believe it was a timber shed and I believe it was a plastic greenhouse.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
All I'd say, Mr Chairman, is no asbestos. Just a thought.
Go on, do it.
They've dug up a sheet out of the backyard and put it down.
We know you.
Where's the lot? We keep it around.
Believe you,
What
we know.
size shed and greenhouse they
Yeah.
have? I mean, do we limit the sizes of sheds?
But you've got to bear in mind that their allotments are limited. You know, they're certain sizes. They're not going to be taking away valuable garden space, are they?
We have had.
You've had the sizes.
I believe it was 2 metres by 3 metres, I think it was on the in drive.
Yeah, for the
Green size.
yeah. Okay, so based on the information we've just gathered, the item is to resolve to agree the application. Do you have a proposer? Rachel? Tim, seconding? All those in favour? Okay, items passed. If we can write to those and let them know that that's a success.
Mr. Chairman.
Agreed.
Can I just thank them for actually asking as well, when we write back to them?
Of course you can.
Instead
Thank
of
you.
just...
Thank you, Sam. I is to resolve to agree to apply to the Crown Estates for permission for the shipping container placed by Holbridge Bank Football Club. If not previously granted, any costs involved will be borne by Holbridge Bank Football Club.
Do you want me to deal with this one?
Am I allowed to speak about this?
Bit back. Speak, but on the back.
We had an approval from the parish council previously, but nothing is written down, because we wouldn't have bought the stuff if we hadn't said we could have it. So now we're going to see if the Crown are aware that it's there, and hopefully the container can stay there. I mean, it is a temporary storage facility, temporary storage.
Okay, thank you for the background on that. Very straightforward. We're just going to go and say to them, did they know? They might say yes, they might say no, they might be happy with it. So I think it's quite straightforward there that we apply.
I'd like to make it quite clear that it's classed as temporary storage, please.
Yeah, and that it's temporary. Do we have a proposer? Mark, seconder, Tim, all those in favour? Okay, item agreed. M, to resolve to agree to purchase dogs must be kept on a lead sign for Holbridge Bank.
It is what it is. We've had 2 incidents recently with other dogs being attacked. No formal complaints have been made. People are a bit nervous about it. I can't do anything down there without signage. I can't go to the dog warden, I can't do anything, because nothing states that you've got to keep your dog on leads down there. So I'd just like a simple sign placed on the gate.
On the gate,
Yes,
presumed.
as you enter. Yeah.
Rick?
I was just going to say, as long as there's sufficient funding in their budget for that, then I have no objections from the Chair of Finance.
It costs £25.
Okay, so here we are, straightforward, to agree to purchase a dogs must be kept on the lead sign. Do we have a proposer and a seconder? Tim and Rick, and all those in favour? Okay, item agreed. Get your sign ordered.
Thank you.
And finally, N, to resolve to agree to hand back the maintenance of the beacon area to South Holland District Council. Whew, that was a long bit for open spaces.
Back around.
I know you're both going for
You say your bit, and I'll say
Rachel a break.
It's historical. Several years ago, Holby Parish Council applied to District Council to be able to maintain the beacon so that they could plant it with flowers, etc., etc. And we have taken over the grass cutting of that area as well. There's never been a formal agreement as such, and we have got no documentation to say that we should or shouldn't be doing X with it. But it does belong to District Council and not to us. So, in the interests of saving a bit of money, it's not ours. If we hand it back, we no longer have the costs of cross-cutting.
Of course, very well, to the point, it's saving money.
Would that make any difference to us using the beacon?
They own that too, and we've already asked permission to have it repaired for us, having it painted. We've already asked for permission from the Jubilee.
I'm just thinking that the maintenance, but you've got the beacon.
You're the one about the grass cutting, not the beacon.
I shouldn't think they can play.
Rachel's next.
Well,
Sorry,
I mean, I'm all for saving a bit of money here there, but I'm also very keen on presentation of our place as well. And I think, no disrespect to South Holland, sorry, it won't be as looked after as it is now. And that concerns me. That is a very focal point. I'm not on about planting it, just maintaining the grass. That's what you see as you come into Hull Beach. You know, this is
about an amenities cut. Because they obviously do all the other amenities around.
and they're cutting back on them. So what is that area going to look like?
We won't know until they've...
I know, but I don't really want to find out, to be honest.
Well, it's going to be a trial, isn't it?
I just think at the moment, if we cut back on one or two cuts there, we'll save a little bit of money, but we'll also make sure it continues to look nice.
I'm sure our fellow colleagues at District will make sure as well, won't they? It is our land after all. Fair point.
I disagree, and I fully agree with Rach on that. The fact of the matter is, that area is a showcase for Beach as such. I don't know if any of you have had travel to Eastern Europe and seen some of these post-communist countries with their huge metal signs of which country, even every little tiny town has got something on it saying who they are. That is a particularly good position to have some kind of advertising for Hull Beach as a whole to identify us as a place, which is not necessarily, we're asking South Holland for their permission to use it. I think for what little bit of money it's going to cost to do it, we should pay that little bit of money and utilise that facility for something to give publicity for Beach as well, whether it's by flower planting or whatever it is, something to give some... We want to put this town on the map, don't we? And we're about to throw away a particularly good spot to show who we are.
Yeah, I don't quite agree because we have that wonderful sign put up that says welcome to Holbeach and all that's there. They're not going to let the grass get to, so high, are they? I think we've blown it out of proportion.
It'll get to a decent length, I think.
Yeah, but not...
We will be able to see small children.
We have great representation from South Holland in this room and they would never let it be seen like that. So, we have to have a bit of faith in district. But, sorry, Sophie.
That's all right. I think our main issue with the area is, like Isabel said, we don't have any formal agreement with it. There was, from what I can find in minutes and various correspondence, there was a bit of a gentleman's agreement that it was the intention that South Holland would be reimbursing us for the cost that they would charge for maintaining it themselves.
And then they haven't.
And then they haven't. So we've just been maintaining it at our own cost. So taxpayers of Hull Beach are paying for that through our precept, where it is South Holland owned. Obviously, you've got the option of handing it back. You've also got the option of negotiating a proper agreement with them that we've then got something in writing that we do maintain it. We do X number of cuts per year, minimum say, and they reimburse us for how many amenity cuts they would normally do per year. You've got that option, but we need to also find out how many amenity cuts they would normally do per year to work out how poorly maintained we believe it
Well,
might be.
that's not what it says on the agenda. we're resolving to agree to hand back. I mean, we can't hand back something we don't own, or hand back the maintenance. You know, that's what it is on the agenda.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I feel that the safest solution would be a logical one. Links to the so to say.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the Commissioner a question. How much money are you saving on handing back?
£300 a year.
£300 per year.
For that level of spend, I would propose that we keep it ourselves, at least that we have the ability to maintain our own garden in a way that our parishioners would expect that to be. If
And of
it
course-
were £3,000, that's a very different sum. £300, I think we can probably afford that.
I think the overriding point, just to redirect, is that if we are taking out of our precept and South Holland aren't giving us their immediate cut money, then the parishioners are paying for it twice, then, aren't they? Because they're paying out of the precept and then we're not getting South Holland's.
Could we amend the agenda point to request communication with South Holland District Council to see if something is in place, and then at least have an idea of what is there, and if not, negotiate that at that point?
Thank you for that comment. I'll come back to that, Mark. Isabel.
There seems to be, obviously, we need more information if we're going to make a decision. So I would suggest we defer the item to get the information we require as to whether they are willing to offer any compensation towards us doing it, or whether we can formalise the agreement in any way, shape or form, and then bring it back to the table with option A, option B.
Okay. So can we go then in between of those two things and go for an amendment to the agenda item to resolve, to agree to open discussions with the South Holland District Council about the maintenance and the beacon area, and then it will be on the agenda then for the next time round.
Thank you.
I think the one thing that we need to be clear on, if South Holland take it back on, it looks very nice with the flower beds there, but I'm a little bit concerned if South Holland take it back over, whether they will do the same to that area as what they did with the roundabout. The roundabout at the bottom of Peppermint Junction used to have roses on the flower bed, and they've all been taken out. Will they do the same with the beacon?
I think you'll probably find that they will do the cuts and the planting will be down to the volunteers if they
Yeah,
go that far.
yeah.
But,
I mean, it's a nice area, it looks very nice, but knowing what they did with the roundabout and took all the roses out and it's just plain grass, whether we're in danger of...
Yeah, the nice thing about that area, it is sustainable planted, so the tulips and everything come up this time of year, of course, and then obviously they die back and go. And then it was a summer planting, I think, that the previous group put in. So,
Yeah.
although it would have a splash of colour, I think South Holland will do safety, not pretty, but, you know, I think we should go back to South Holland as per the amendment and open negotiations for the maintenance of that area, and if they can reimburse the cost, that would be brilliant. Win-win. Do we have a proposal for the amendment? Mark, second to Tim. All those in favour? Okay, so that's the amendment agreed. Okay, right, so we're going to be moving on to item 159 of the same sequence, which is the Planning, Properties, Emergency Planning and Speeding Committee, and to receive the report by Chairman Councillor Sam Fambon, please.
Thank you. Most of the planning applications this time have gone through without comment. However, comments have been made by councillors about the development of land at the back of the Chequers. This is still a concern about the suitability of this land for housing. We have also received 2 letters from concerned parishioners about this development. Those letters have also been forwarded to South Holland. Another one that drew comment was the new building at the UAH. We agree that everything to support our children in education is fantastic, but we are mindful that the land that's going to be used is currently being used for car parking, and we hope that that's going to be addressed by the powers that be. The speeding, the SIDS location for February and Northern's Lane and Leadenhall Road? Leadenhall Road. And we have also resolved to publish the SID data on the Facebook page.
Good idea.
Because it's really interesting. Emergency planning. Two of the councillors have recently attended an emergency planning training course, and we have started work on the project, and we will update you with the progress at the next meeting. We have discussed leases, one of which falls due for renewal, and this is an agenda item later on tonight.
Okay. Thank you very much. And item B is to resolve to approve the planning applications.
So, I was going to say, with the emergency planning, did Holbridge ever receive what we call a back box? It had various items.
There's not an agenda item yet. Do you want to discuss that with planning after? Thank you. Okay, so everyone's seen the application list on the drive? Had a read through? A few comments on there. Are we happy to go straight to a proposal and a seconder to accept those? Yeah, Isabel? Sam? All those in favour? Okay, if you can go ahead and make those necessary. Right, and we have item, same sequence 160, PR and IT committee, and to receive a report from the chairman, Peter Howden, who's not with us. Sam, you're going to do that? Lovely, thank you.
It's quite lengthy, bear with me. We've received a good number of photos for the calendar competition. Posters have been sent out to local schools and to the grammar and high schools. And it's been republished on our Facebook page a number of times, and there are posters of around 10. A press release for March is planned once the judges have been selected. We have names that have been bandied about, we're just waiting for replies from the letters. We've discussed the possibility of reducing the total number of parish councillors, although this couldn't happen until the next elections in 2023. The idea of changing the title to Holbeach Town Council was raised, and our clerk is going to contact South Holland District Council as to how this could be done. There was a mixed response to this idea. Councillor Sophie Hutchinson and Councillor Peter Howden had a virtual meeting with the teachers with a teacher from Holbeach Academy. I think it was Miss Greger. Sorry, I couldn't remember. And they're in the early stages of setting up their school council, but are very keen to act with us and become part of us and set up a youth council with us. They're very keen for some of their students to observe some of their council meetings as well. Peter Howden and Councillor Sparks spoke to the owner of the stores and filling station at Holbeach Drove, and she's agreed that we could put up our own notice board on the outside one of her walls, and has also agreed that a defibrillator could go there too. And Councillor Howden is in talks with Holbeach St John's Village Hall for a site for notice board there as well. The first open surgery was held at Cooborough Chambers last month. We agreed to call such future events as Holbeach Parish Council forums to make it more open. Arrangements are being made to hold these in outlying villages. There are a number of places been named for the places we could hold these. And the Rosa Crown at Holbeach Herne has given us permission to hold a meeting there on the 6th, at 6 p.m. on the 24th of February. The press release for the calendar competition has been resent to the Voice and to the Free Press, hoping that they will print it. The Village Voice this month's edition, the Car Show for March, and the Easter Duck Hunt for April features releases. These will include 2 summer yard sales as well. A suggested agenda item for full council was that we relied on councillors reading notes on the OneDrive, and this should be explained more fully to allow members of the public the full transparency regarding decisions of such items. The next meeting of the PRIT committee will be on Wednesday the 2nd of March at Kubro at 4:30.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
Busy. Yeah, well done, thank you.
Rachel's got her hand up.
Yeah, I'll get to you in a second. Great news there, especially about the defibrillator. If we can send our sincere thanks, that's great.
Peter and Peter
Thank
worked
you.
really hard on
Thank
that.
you, Peter, yeah, brilliant. Rachel?
I would like to add, obviously for travelling out to the villages, which I fully agree with, that the representative for each ward member is there,
Yeah.
which I think is quite important.
So if you're a Hobby Chairman's ward member, then you
Yeah,
should be
the
there.
same as St John's
Yeah.
and what have you.
Which makes sense, it's the same as what district in the Dale ward.
Yeah, so I think if you arrange a meeting, you get in touch with whoever's relevant.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we've got item 161 of the same sequence, Events Committee, and to receive a report from the Chairman, Councillor Isabel Hutchinson, please.
Over the last month, we've been having discussions with various groups regarding the Jubilee celebrations on the 4th of June, and we will be announcing details of the plans for the day very shortly. The event will be running from 11 a.m. until 4 p.m. in Church Street, and I'd like to offer thanks to Councillor Carter for her help with the road closure. It's very much appreciated. We are holding an Easter duck hunt on Saturday the 16th of April between 10 and 2, and there will be ducks to be found around Carter's Park and in the town, and then children, once they've found all of the ducks, will be able to collect some sweets from us wherever we set up, but we haven't decided that one yet. The car show is proving very popular again. We already have over 100 cars booked. We have live music, trade stands, children's entertainment, the strongman competition, which is being organised by Rawls Gym, and food and drink. And again, thanks to Holbush Primary Academy for allowing us to use their field and working closely with us to make it a successful event. Councillor Rick Stevens and Councillor Mark Murphy have joined the events committee and are heading up the organisation of this year's Remembrance Parade on our behalf. And the road closure has already been applied for and preparations are underway. We haven't yet set a date for the Christmas event, but we hope to do this at our next meeting. And finally, could I please ask all members to save the main dates of the 4th of June and the 24th of July in their diaries, as we will need as many volunteers as possible for stewarding on those days. So if you could let the office know your availability on those days. Obviously we'll do a rota, so you're not expected to be there all day, but it would be very useful if we know who's available sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. Wow, we've got so much going on. That's good to see. Well done. Okay, so item number 162, same sequence, is the Finance Committee, and to receive a report from the Chairman, Councillor Stevens. Do you want me to say a bit, because I just Okay, so we met at Kubro and the committee, we used our delegated powers to pay the parking card bill, which was £554.63. That's due to the requirement for it to be paid before full council meets. The council insurance was discussed, and the recommendations on that point are actually further on the agenda, so we can just leave that there. All right. Okay, so item B is to resolve to agree the financial statement and the payment list. Can we say this bit as well? Or you
No, I was going to say that. I don't have any comment because all the details are on the shared drive.
Okay, so when I look at those, it was under its usual scrutiny. in the meeting, and 10 items were selected randomly. Do we have a proposer and a seconder? Rick? Mark? All those in favour? That's agreed. C is to resolve to agree the purchase of additional fire extinguishers in Park Cemetery buildings. So it's been identified that some fire extinguishers are required, and there's some quotes put together on the team drive. Did everyone have a little look at those? Bit of a comparison on price. So the agenda item is to agree the purchase of additional fire extinguishers in the Park Road Cemetery building. Do we have a proposer and a seconder? Sophie and Rick. All those in favour? That's agreed. Thank you. D is to resolve to agree to purchase a trailer for the open spaces team. Rick.
So a few months ago we sold the old registration tractor as it was no longer required. We received over £4,000 from that, and it was agreed that we would spend £4,000 or thereabouts, no more than, on a replacement I4-like trailer for the parks team. Jan's done a lot of work on this, so has Brandy, because it's sort of come to light that the Kabuto tractor can only tow 1.5 tons, I think it is, or thereabouts. 3 tons, is it? Okay. So obviously that limits what size trailer we can have. We've had a look around. There is a couple of second-hand ones available, quite newish. There's also a place in Handle, or Doodle, my dad always called it. Yeah, that makes very similar to the I4 for around about £3,500. But there is a requirement to buy one ASAP.
Of course. So the item D is to resolve to agree to purchase a trailer for the open spaces team. Do we have a proposer and a seconder? Rick and Mark. All those in favour? Okay, that item's agreed. E is to discuss and resolve to agree to remain with Bingham Woods for our investments. There was a very interesting document in the team drive. Great reading, lots of explanation. It just went to show what level of service that they are providing. So the item is to resolve to agree to remain with Bingham Woods for our investments. Do we have a proposer and a seconder? Rick and Sam, and all those in favour? Okay, that item's agreed. And item F is to discuss and resolve the insurance review. Make it bigger or okay. No, that's fine. So we discussed the insurance review in the meeting, and the properties need revaluing. If the property values are too low, we would only receive a percentage of their insured value should we make a claim. So if they are undervalued, we only get a proportion amount of the true cost because we've undervalued them. We should check with the Crown Estate to ensure that they're happy with the insurance values at Holbridge Bank. Some examples of the cost of insuring some individual buildings. So, for instance, the football stand and the changing rooms at Carter's Park is £600 per annum. The Bowls Club is £300 per annum. By reducing the sums insured on play equipment could save us up to £600, and we would still be insured for public liability. So what we're looking at is damage, as in the amount of damage that would occur at any one time. We are covered up to £100,000 for legal expenses. Contents basically works out at £4 per 100,000 insured.
1,000 pounds, sorry.
Sorry?
£1,000.
Sorry.
£4 for 1,000.
Sorry, £4 for 1,000 insured. The Finance Committee resolved to recommend that the sums insured for the playground equipment are reduced by half to 75,000, bearing in mind we're talking about the catastrophe of an incident causing £75,000 worth of incident on the playground equipment only. And street furniture is reduced to 25,000, so that's bins and bus stops that we do own. And then include an extra 5,000 in there just for contingency, so 30,000. There you go. Cool, yeah. It's just a synopsis of looking at them. Obviously, there's some insurance are really, really high, and the chances of it's weighing up that's what insurance is all about, isn't it?
But I just also like to say that insurance costs have shot through the roof this year. I'm sure you've noticed in your own business, but we're looking at on average 25% increase. And we're also getting now very limited to which insurance companies are prepared to insure parish councils. We're down to 3 now.
Yeah.
So and that's obviously a very big worry going forward.
It's very difficult. So these were recommendations that we discussed to go back to the Finance Committee and just rejig and get an accurate review. So based on what I've just said, do we have a proposer and a seconder for the review to take place? Thank you, Tim. Sophie, second. All those in favour? Okay, that item's agreed. Thank you for listening. Okay, so item 163 of the same sequence is to resolve to agree to elect a safeguarding officer. Are you volunteering to be that safeguarding officer?
No, I'm already one, but the problem is, well, I've already got one. I'm amazed I've already got one.
Sorry?
I'm amazed I've already got one.
Well, that's why it's on the agenda to make sure we do it. Sophie?
I would like to propose Sam as our safeguarding officer.
Propose who?
Sam.
And I would like to second that.
Nice.
I'm going to say, yeah, I'll say about this.
Okay, so Sam, first of all, before we go to a vote, you have been commended to be our safeguarding officer. With your background, I can understand why, and thank you for bringing those skills to our table. Would you accept the post if you was voted in?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so we have a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour? Two hands. Okay, so that's agreed. So our new safeguarding officer is Sam. Thank you very much. 6.4 of the same sequence is to discuss and resolve to agree to start the process to reduce councillor numbers and to discuss changing to a town council. This has been discussed in the report that Sam gave, and it's discussions to resolve to agree the start of the process of reducing councillor numbers and the possibility of changing from a parish to a town council in recognition on the size. Yeah. Rick?
So I proposed sometime last year, I don't remember when, June or July, that we look at reducing it. Jan has done some fantastic work as per normal. We are currently, going by the numbers, probably 2 councillors over what we should have. So the proposal is to reduce the number of councillors we have to 16.
Nice to have 16.
Yeah, exactly. And the process for this, because it has to go all the way through South Holland and follow their steps and processes, etc. And each step takes approximately 3 months. So if we start the ball rolling now, we could have this in effect April next year.
And then it can't come in until elections.
Elections, yeah. It's a 1-year process.
Historically, obviously the table was set a long time ago. What was their reasoning for this number of councillors?
From the document that I've seen, there's a whole document on there, and John kindly passed it on, and it was all to do with electorate. And the numbers of people, for what I could make out, and they are set by South Holland.
Yeah.
So.
And my second question is, obviously it's been set by South Holland originally. What are the costs incurred for doing this? Because obviously there haven't
There's
been
none.
anything,
No.
nothing.
Nothing at all.
The cost is all borne by South Holland Council. It says that in the documents in the drawing. I read that's the first thing I looked for. Yes.
I did a little bit more research this morning because the process that South Holland have pointed us towards is it governance review or something, Jan? I'm getting that word right.
Governance community review.
Yeah, thank you. Within that, there's a lot of other things that you can do within the guidance document that I read. So in terms of changing your number of wards, the number of councillors on each ward and stuff, because if you were reducing the number of councillors, you're going to have to think about which wards you're going to then be removing them from. I know that fairly recently we've introduced the Drove ward into the mix.
Which is only got one person, so you can't
I feel like, especially with the town council, that's just something that we can resolve. But then you have also got the options of, do you want to amend the name to try and make it inclusive to the villages, etc. So I think in terms of the reducing councillor numbers and the opportunities we have under that process, it would be worth reviewing if there were any other restructurings or changes you wanted to make at the same time, to be able to put it all into the same process rather than a month down the line saying you want to do another thing. I think we've got an opportunity here to review how we're structured. We've made a lot of changes internally, so do we want to do the review for how we're structured as a parish in terms of what wards we have, numbers, etc., names of wards, whatever you want to.
So I already lost one from the Herne ward to make the Drove ward. So don't really want any more reductions at all. So down to 3, well hopefully 3.
Sam?
My concern was Holbeach Town Council.
I haven't even touched on that subject yet.
Yeah, the name. I did bring this up at committee and I stood my ground and thought I don't like it. I don't like the name because it doesn't encompass our parish. It doesn't bring in. So if we were to do this, it would be, to get my vote, it would have to have a name that pulled the villages in as well.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go on to Mark and I'll come on to you next turn. Mark.
I think on the council numbers, again, I may have misread the figures, but I believe the figures that came through from South Island was that 10,400 was 17 councillors, and I believe in the 2021 census we've currently got listed just short of 10,900 electors as of our parish. Is that not right?
I think that's population of the town rather than electors, yeah.
The figures, excuse me for butting Mr. Chair, the figure relates to people who pay for the precept, and we've only got 8,500. Right, okay.
That's fine. Then that sets that point.
That's all right. No, thank you for asking the question. Tim?
Given all universities recognise that the villages get too much representation on the council as it exists currently, are we not in danger of fencing them off effectively to fend for themselves? Because obviously, regardless of anything else, we have some kind of infrastructure here that deals with their issues at the local village level. If we then cut them off from that access to that, how are they going to create their own little individual parishes to deal with their own issues on themselves? We've let them go on.
Okay, you have got a valid point, and we've discussed around this table before on how Holbeach is such a large parish, whereas then you've got Fleet, which is Section and Gedney and Long Sutton, and we seem to be the miles of it, but it was South Holland Council, but I do get your point. Rachel?
Well, we touched on the actual subject of town council as well, because it's not something I'm for, because there is not much difference between parish council and town council. I don't like the mayor situation. Your expenses go up. There's a lot of things to a town council.
You don't have to have a mayor, though, do you? Sorry,
I wouldn't agree to that at all.
The way the town council is run is exactly the same as the parish
Yeah, so
council.
why
So
do we need
in
to
terms of
change?
expenses, etc., that's whatever we decide.
Yeah, but you're saying there's no expense. If we change our name now, all our signage has to change, the uniforms, There is an expense.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of expenses for councillors, etc.
Yeah,
and
I'm
the
now
mayor and
talking
things,
about
yeah.
another expense.
You just obviously touched on two different
Yeah.
things in the same conversation. I'm right behind you on that. You know, there is no requirement to have a mayor, chairman. The chairman's just the same job as a mayor. But you are right that there would be expenses with a rebrand. Can we not, when we look at what we're asking the council here is for the vision to look at this particular avenue. It's not saying for us to do it, it's saying look at it. And simply a reduction in the council numbers would actually be sufficient, and it would clear up your point and your point at the same time.
I mean, my point is, the villages, doesn't matter what you call it, this at the minute covers everything.
Yeah. And you know the work that Peter does in his drove, etc. Can't go unrecognised. Well, it wouldn't go unrecognised anyway. It's just a vision, but Peter.
I don't like the word reduction. It should be an appropriate level of representation based on.
But it is a reduction.
Which in this case would be a reduction. However, I think the reduction could be taken negatively by our parishioners. What we're doing is we are adjusting our levels of representation to reflect those to which we represent. And I agree we should do something on that grounds, as long as it's not to the detriment of any one particular area of the parish. You know, it's important we have representation where we can get it across our parish, as you say. It is a very large and really odd shape.
Yes. The way you cross over is difficult.
From my kitchen window I can see Poplar Grove and Fleet, which is really quite surreal. Yeah. And on the notion of changing from a parish to a town council, I just think that's detrimental to the vision that we are a parish council and represent everyone in the parish.
I think, just I'll come to you in a second, as Sam pointed out, it created a bit of a discussion, and it's good to see that there's a debate going on here about it, and we've got mixed feelings, because that's what makes us all individuals, I think.
The only thing, obviously, I think we're all looking at we will review the councillor numbers. The only other thing I was thinking about when I was actually looking at the parish map today, the Herne ward is significantly larger than any of our wards. And with the St John's and the Drove, you've only got one seat for St John's and one seat for the Drove. Now, obviously, we haven't got any councillors representing the Drove currently. And we do tend to struggle getting councillors to represent people on the wards rather than town. So within sort of this review process that we could go, which is quite broad spectrum, that's the word, do you look at the possibility of combining the St John's and the Drove ward again, because then it's more proportionate to the sizes of the other wards you've got, and that might encourage more chance of representation across that side of the parish. So you'd almost, in effect, with the shape of the parish, you've got the town in the centre, you've got the Herne ward to the north, and then another ward to the south, which would become your two sort of rural village wards. It's an option. I know we did used to be spread like that.
Isabel?
Can I make a suggestion that when we are going out to the villages to have discussions, when you do your PR and IT discussions, this is a subject that you bring up with the parishioners and ask them how they feel about the representation that they're getting, how they feel about, you know, how the parish council works, and whether they would like to see any changes or not, and sort of explain it a little bit more to them, because it may be that they don't really understand that they're even represented by the Herne ward or the Drove ward, or we don't know what their perception of the way we work is, and I think that would be quite key before we start making decisions about how many councillors we need on particular wards. We need to understand what the people there actually want.
Right, I'm going to go back in order, sorry.
I think also that we have to look at how the parish is expanding, and the future building areas, which won't be in the town centre. It's going to be out in those outlying areas. You know, look at the Fen Road. You've got all those new houses going down there, then you've got some in Damgate, that all comes under Holbeach, and it's mushrooming. So when you're looking at reducing the amount of councillors, you've got to also consider where the growth of new housing is going to be and what areas are going to need cover.
Okay, thank you for that. Mark?
I think one thing that was also raised at the RIT meeting at the time was the fact that we've got different councillors that are, if you like, displaced from the area that they're in due to the fact that when they applied to the council, there was a vacant seat, but not necessarily in the ward that they actually live. So in that context, if you think about the current councillors we have, you've maybe got 3 councillors at least that will change, if you like, the geographical location of their ward if they was to go where they actually live as opposed to the seat that they currently reside in, if that makes sense.
There's a good point there. And I remember when I first came to the council and just had a general chat with a councillor, it doesn't matter which ward you sit in, you're still representing your parish. So no matter whether you're in Holbeach Drove, Holbeach Herne or Holbeach Town, it's irrelevant to which ward you're set. You actually represent your whole parish.
At the moment.
No, you do now. I'm talking about present.
Me, obviously, I'm quite active outside the age
Yeah.
17,
Yeah.
and I'm lucky that most people do speak to me in all 3 villages. I think we need to be more looking at us why they're not joining and see where we're going wrong.
I mean, if there's an influx, and we've got the press with us today, you know, there is people out there, I'm sure, that will come along.
And there's
some
several
option.
members, because I would love another member from obviously the villages, who actually live in the villages, and I have spoken at length with several people.
Well, there's a great opportunity.
So,
Just pop in the paper for us again.
thank you.
Okay, so just to move the meeting on then, the item of 164 was to discuss and resolve to agree to start the process to reduce council numbers and to discuss change into a town council. Do we have an amendment to that, or do we have a proposal?
I'd like to make an amendment. I'm quite happy to agree to look at the numbers, but not for town council.
It's only discussed for town council.
Yeah. Okay, so it's to discuss and resolve to agree to start the process to reduce council numbers, and then it's discuss town council.
Sounds fabulous then. I'm quite happy with that.
So do we have a proposer?
I was just going to say, is it possible to make the amendment change to the language that Councillor Sparks said about having the appropriate number of councillors as opposed to reduction proportion? Yeah.
I'm sure we can include that, thank you. Can we do that?
Amendment 2. Can you repeat it again?
So we're going to instead of reducing council numbers, to adjust to proportion of representation of councillors based on the electorate.
Of electorate.
Do we have a proposer for that amendment? Yeah, Mark, a second. Peter, all those in favour of the amendment? Okay, that's agreed.
Can I just say I didn't vote? I didn't vote because I don't agree with all them.
Okay. Would you like that recorded in the minutes?
Yes, please.
Okay, so item 165, same sequence, is to resolve to agree to adopt the new code of conduct as from April 2022 and to remove the highlighted sections as per the document in the team drive that was there for us all to have a read through. Did everybody have a little look at that document? It was a bit like a revision for me going back to when I first joined, all about principles and about things we should disclose or not, etc., behaviour. You saw that?
It's a good read.
Good read.
It's a worth read.
Tim, did you manage to see that document? Yeah. Okay, so straight in, do we have a proposer and a seconder? Isabel, Rachel, all those in favour?
I haven't seen it, so I can't.
Yeah. Okay, so we now have to resolve to exclude the press and the public under the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960 due to the confidential nature of the business, to be transacted for agenda items 2021, 166, 167 and 168. Do we have a proposer and a seconder to move those into closed session? Rachel and Sophie. All those in favour? Thank you. So at this point in time then, we then reorder the agenda for those items to fall at the end of the meeting. Do we have a proposer to renumber the agenda? Sam and second Mark. All those in favour? All that's agreed. So, following the agenda then, same sequence, item 169 is agenda items and requests. Is there any agenda items and requests that you'd like to put forward this evening? Please remember that these agenda requests can come in at any time up to as and when Jan tells you to. And if you have anything now, please shout them out or put your hand up first.
Sam, can I just pop the phone box back on there, please?
Any particular one?
I'd like one in the High Street, if you don't mind.
High Street phone box, of course. Anybody else think?
Not at the moment.
If anything springs to mind, you know, just email us. So item 170 of the same sequence is to confirm the venue of the next parish council meeting, and the next parish council meeting date is the 14th of March 2022 at 1900 hours at the Methodist Hall, Albert Street. Close the meeting. Thank you everybody.